Yes, indeed, folks. Listen to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com with myself, Total Biscuit. Right, so, various things we need to talk about. There have been changes. There have been class announcements. It's cataclysmic. However, in the meantime, I would like to cover just a few of these little things that have been sent in. Last week, I asked you to submit on the website ideas for 5-man content to become 25-man content, turning 5-man heroic bosses from Wrath of the Lich King into raids. So I'm going to do a couple of these at the start of each segment, and then we'll pick a winner for the Griffin Hatchling at the end of the show. So let's make it happen. Okay, here's one. First one is here. This one's from Anecdote. He says this: I'd want to see the Black Knight of TOC 5-man be a raid encounter, mostly because it's 3-phased, and it's not only a tank and spank due to the ads on Phase 2. For 10 to 25-man raid, obviously many things should be added. Make ads more lethal, so you need 1 to 2 tanks to tank them, like TOGC 25 and Nub. And ads explode faster, so DPS needs to kill the ads faster. Exploding ads will do damage and kill you whether you're not in range of the explosion or not. Okay, right, so in other words, if you're in range of the explosion or not, you die anyway. Make some lethal moves, which can be easily avoided. Something like every 50 seconds, everyone 10 to 15 yards away from each other, or the raid will start wiping the floor with their tongues. This guy's weird, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, TOGC, TOC, all that good stuff. Yeah, Black Knight, I suppose, might be alright. That one's a little bit too long, can't read that. Let's go for this one. Galwath says this: does anyone remember when Gundrak used to be hard? Anyone? No? Oh, well, okay, maybe it was just me. But in Gundrak, there was one boss that I think stands out from all the others. Nowadays, he's been steamrolled in under 30 seconds, but I remember when at least me and my group had to set up some tactics to kill him. I'm talking about Sladran, the snake boss. I know what you're thinking, boring as hell, right? But imagine multiple snake wraps, tons of ads that had to be controlled in order to keep the tanks from being snake-wrapped, maybe some kind of system where the ads had to stack together. Indeed, the tanks had to stack together to minimize the damage from the boss, and the Poison Nova would be lethal to anyone within the radius unless you were the tank. You would get a debuff protecting him from the Poison Nova, but reducing his ability to generate threat by 100%. Slydran would also enrage a random snake that would deal 200% damage, but had 60% movement speed reduction. Yeah, that sounds relatively reasonable. Okay. Here's one from Black Book. He says, I would like to see the Blackheart Inciter boss, that's the ogre from Shadow Labs, with a full part/raid mind control, just because it would be challenging. Full mind control equals chaos, chaos equals fun. Okay, maybe that would be terrible. About to blow your mind, however, Black Book would like to see Cookie from Deadmines. Why, he's a Murloc and he's a chef. Enough said. I do not agree that having a Murloc and a chef is enough, in fact, to justify making that into a raid boss. I'm sorry. At some point there will be a Murloc raid boss, but it will not be now, and it certainly won't be Cookie. He cannot be trusted, quite frankly. Okay. We'll do one more, and then we'll talk about talents. Lasher says, I've thought quite a lot about this, and I think Herald Volage would be a great candidate for a raid encounter, but instead of one person against all others in the group, it could be a group versus another group from the raid, or versus all the other groups in 25-man. This could also bring back group management to raids, since it would require a balanced group, otherwise it would probably be a boring face roll. The objective doesn't have to be to kill all the other groups, but maybe just survive for a limited time. Okay, reasonable, fair enough. Right. So, talents. Changes, many things with Cataclysm. Now, first thing is first, this is a preview, which means that there is a lot more stuff. So, you can read this from the blues and said, keep in mind this is only the beginning, things will get pretty wild the next few days or weeks. So this is just a preview, this is not everything that's going to be happening. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the mage changes, and I'm going to compare them to the rest of the changes. Now, I would love to talk about the effects of the other classes, but it's not going to happen because I don't know anything about the other classes. Not beyond, at any rate, not beyond the basic knowledge required to lead a raid. That's it, that's all I really know about them. I know a rogue up to level 60. That's about it. Right, so let's talk about mage changes. So we're getting some new spells. We're getting a Flame Orb, which is a area of effect thing that goes out in a straight line, sending beams that do fire damage to passing targets. Okay, fair enough. Time Warp. It's Bloodlust, only you also get a speed buff from it as well. Mage's own movement speed increases. Okay, and Wall of Fog. This is a level 85 spell. It creates a line of frost in front of the mage, 30 yards from end to end. Enemies who cross it are snared and take damage. The mana cost will be designed to make Wall of Fog efficient against groups but not individuals. And the spell is intended to give mages a way to help control the battlefield, whether the mage is damaging incoming enemies or protecting a flag in a battleground. 10-second duration, 30-second cooldown on that one. Okay. So there's your main 3 spells. I have concern about a number of things here. So Flame Orb is cool. I got no problem with that. I also have no problem with Wall of Fog. I'll come on to that for a minute, but Time Warp is disturbing. It really is. And the reason Time Warp is disturbing is it's taking a Shaman exclusive ability and giving it to a mage. I don't agree with that, I'm afraid. So, here's the difference. There are 2 kinds of homogenization. One is okay, one isn't. Now, an example of homogenization that is okay is the recent changes to the other classes. If you have a look at it, a lot of these healing classes have been given this change right here. Let's go down to the Priest one. If you go on an internet field trip with me to MMO Champion, scroll all the way down. Yes, indeed, all the way down. And have a look at Priest. It's right at the bottom of the list, right at the bottom of the page right now. So, new Priest spells. Heal, available at level 16. While Priests already have a spell called Heal, the existing version becomes obsolete at higher levels, which is something we want to change. Blah, blah, blah. So, you can read the rest of that for yourself, but here's the line that really matters. Heal is intended to be the Priest's go-to direct healing spell unless they need something bigger, i.e. greater heal, or faster flash heal. We'll be following a similar philosophy with all the healing classes. Okay. Okay, fair enough. That's a good kind of homogenization, yeah? You're giving all of the healing classes something like this. That's good. You wanna know why it's good? Because healing sucks right now. Really. Why would you want one healing spell to be completely useless past a certain level? That's terrible, terrible design. Really. Absolutely horrendous design. So, I'm not keen on that. But I am keen on the idea of bringing heal back into the fray and making you make decisions, yeah? So, if you need a quick heal, you go flash heal. If you need a big heal, you go greater heal. Otherwise, you just use your normal healing spell. So you've got those choices there. And then, of course, you've got all the other stuff, like Circle of Healing, the Beacon of Light, all of the resto stuff. That's good. That's choices that expands the arsenal of the healer. That's a good thing, right? In my opinion. That's a good kind of homogenization. That's taking a system, reworking it down to a new baseline, and then expanding upon that. That's what I hope to see from Cataclysm with all of these stat changes. That's good. Now here's the bad kind of homogenization, and this is not the only one. Time Warp. Giving Bloodlust to mages is a bad idea. Period. In the same way that giving MS effects to 6 different classes. Yes, indeed, 6. I believe the DK has something quite similar to that in a proc. Giving those effects is bad. I said this all the way back at the start of Wrath. You remember what happened with the Shadow Priest? The Shadow Priest got a really, really awesome ability which diversified the Shadow Priest from everything else. It made a spec viable again. And of course that was the mana battery. However, this changed when they gave it to Rep Paladins and Survival Hunters and Frost Mages. It's like they took one good idea and we thought, ooh, this is nice, isn't it? Yeah, it's great. Let's give it to loads of different specs. Not good. Now, what I'm seeing in a lot of these skills is a massive amount of homogenization of special abilities that define a class. This is the thing. What defines a shaman? Well, in a normal sort of way. A shaman is defined by totems. Yeah? That's its gimmick. And that's not changing, so that's fine. However, in a raiding environment, it is defined by one thing, and it's bloodlust. That's why you bring it. Totems don't matter as much as bloodlust in a raid environment. Totems are nice, don't get me wrong. Totems are a good gimmick. However, what defines it, what makes you bring a shaman, is bloodlust. So if you give bloodlust to multiple classes, what's going to happen? Well, I think you can figure that out for yourself. So, here's the problem. It's bring the player, not the class, all over again. As a mage, I don't want bloodlust. Let the shamans have it. That's their thing. That's the reason you bring them. But it's this nonsense of bring the player, not the class, that is pushing Blizzard towards this idea. Like, oh, but what about the shaman? Blah, blah, blah. well, he's got an ability, and we'd like to give it to other people. What if they don't have a shaman? Okay, well, let's have a look at it the other way around. The way that Blizzard doesn't really seem to engage their brain on. Bring the player, not the class, is wonderful until you discover that one class is better than another. That's the problem, and that's what happens. The math is done. Prime example, not a week ago on this show, I asked one question, and that was, why did Paragon not take mages to Lich King 25 hard? You want to know what the answer to that was? Because their DPS apparently was slightly lower than the other classes. So in other words, the utility has been taken away, and then it comes down to mathematics. And do not tell me that Blizzard is capable of balancing that. They aren't. They have proven that they are not able to do it. That means that if you've got Bloodlust on a mage, and that mage has more utility and does more damage than a shaman, then they're gonna take the shaman away. Now, people are asking whether or not these abilities stack. No, they do not. Quote, Time Warp, level 83, grants a passive haste effect. Much like Bloodlust or Heroism, to party or raid members, it also temporarily increases the mage's own movement speed. Time Warp will be exclusive with Bloodlust and Heroism, meaning you cannot benefit from both. Yes. The movement speed increase will still work even if you're under the effects of exhaustion. So, in other words, sated, basically. Same thing. That's bad. That's really bad. The more this happens, the further this gets away from Blizzard's actual objective. They want bring the player, not the class. It's not going to happen. It's still bring the class. In fact, it's more bring the class than it was before. Because bring the player, not the class, is nonsense. Therein lies the problem. Think about this. In a 25-man raid, you have ample room for everybody you want. Yeah? Even in a 10-man raid, you have ample room for one of each class, and indeed that's a good setup. There's nothing wrong with it. It works absolutely fine. We've done some hard modes with it. It's good. So, that's alright. But if you go further and further along this homogenization line of things that define classes, then what you have is bring the class that's best. Not bring the player, not the class. Bring the class that does this job better than the other class. Here's the question. If you have the choice, which of these do you take? Shadow Priest, Survival Hunter, Ret Paladin, or Frost Mage? Assume that all of them have equal gear. Now I can tell you, and I couldn't tell you which one it was, because hey, Frost Mages, who cares, and I don't know about the rest of them. I can tell you for a fact that one of those is going to do better damage than the other three, because that is simple mathematics. And you know what any discerning raid is going to do? They're going to take the one that does the most damage and has the most utility, that can do that ability. It's as simple as that. So the more you do this, the more you force any guild that is discerning and wants to do hard content to take the class that does that ability the best. Simple as that. It's bad. It is exactly the opposite of what they want. It's a terrible idea. Anyway, there's a couple of other things I want to cover in the last 2 minutes of this segment, so I'm not going to look at the rest of the mage stuff because, hey, you don't care, whatever. I might do an entire freaking podcast on this if you actually want me to. There's a couple of other things that I looked at that make me think that this won't be so bad. I mean, most of these changes are pretty good, don't get me wrong. They're not terrible, and I'm sure that plenty of people can analyze these changes for me. So, there's a couple of other things I want to look at. The first is, how many of these abilities grant a speed bonus? I mean, Time Warp does, as in, I'm talking movement speed here. Stampeding Roar, that's got a speed bonus. What else has got a speed bonus? There's a few other things that have a speed bonus. Now, whatever the case is, it makes me wonder. You got stuff like Life Grip, as people are calling it. It's got a Leap of Faith, is what they're calling it. It's actually nicknamed Life Grip now. So many abilities that allow you to move rapidly from one place to another. Interesting. That makes me think that bosses in Cataclysm are going to be a heck of a lot more mobile, heck of a lot more dynamic, a lot more movement-based mechanics, because they're putting in all of these things that you can do to move very quickly. It's a possibility, don't you think? Yes, it makes sense. And if you have a look at some of the other stuff, like, say, Shadow Priests are getting an ability called Mind Spike, yeah? Nice quick attack. It's quick new to use in situations where the priest does not have time to set up a normal rotation. Now, when would that be? Well, adds that die too fast, and when you have to move a lot. Exactly. And there are a couple of other abilities like that. I think Warlocks are getting something similar. So, that makes me think movement is going to be a big deal in Cataclysm. That is my thought on that. It's going to be highly crazy and situational. And also, all of these other abilities that are based around movement as well. You got stuff like the Wall of Fog. Things have to move through it. You got the Smoke Bomb. Things have to move into it. A lot of movement, a lot of positioning is going to be happening in Cataclysm. That is my recommendation. My name is Total Biscuit. You are listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com. Devon Townsend sounds good, ladies and gents. I'll be right back after this. Enjoy.